All right, buddy, and welcome back. I hope you guys are enjoying yourself. We're going to look at Pulsechain Pumpamentals. So I hope you guys are going to enjoy this one. We're going to talk a little bit about what the status is of Pulsechain at the moment with the launch, and also Pulse, the token that will accompany it. And we're also going to look at possibly the Hex roll around it as well, and the price of that and the Pumpamentals there. We're also going to look at basically pulse prices, what might it be worth as an upside perhaps, and obviously price discovery that's on there. We're also going to quickly check into the Ethereum valuation as well. Lots going on, folks, so let's get straight into it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, once again, subscribe, like, and share. Hit the bell for further notifications, and check out the two previous videos on Pulse for beginners, and Pulsechain Explained. So check those out too. All right, let's get onto it. So here we are on the Pulsechain website. You can see that we've got all the usual stuff here. I've done a whole video on this website. It's very cool. It's got all the Pulse goals, the project status, and so forth. Now, the latest updates are on the Telegram. You can open Telegram, get onto that as well. It's also got stuff about the bridge, about trading, and the nomenclature. So very cool there. You can check all that out. I've got a previous video on that. I'll leave the link in the video description. So let's quickly check out uh, the Ethereum price, because it's going to give you a guide. Pulsechain is going to be a fork of Ethereum. That means that in Ethereum they have there's a blockchain, and in a block they have blocks that link to each other, and obviously there's a new block created, the old one goes, etc. And in those blocks they've got transactions. Those transactions are anything that's done on the Ethereum blockchain, and obviously we know that gas fees have been very high, and that's one of the key drivers for Pulsechain, is to lower the gas fees pretty close, as close to zero as possible, but there will be some charge, of course. We don't know exactly what it's going to be. We know that the throughput's going to be 4 times faster, so it's going to be a pretty big deal over time, and make the Pulsechain last a very long time with the low fees. So very cool. And it was also help with the Ethereum taking some of the demand off there, but it also obviously be a competitor and take some of the market share as well. Obviously, Ethereum has gas prices have really fallen at the moment. They're down at 11 Gwei. Pretty amazing. They were up at over 100 Gwei for months and months and months, and the miners were killing it in terms of the income. And at some stages, they were even up as high as 2,000 Gwei, which was just absolutely ridiculous off the planet when the market was doing a pullback about 3 weeks ago or so. So here we are on Ethereum. We've got Ethereum here at the moment. So at the moment, the Gwei prices are falling. It's unlikely they're going to be able to maintain this. They have got another fork coming up to deal with some gas price issues, despite the miners being against it. That's coming up. But it's whenever there's big demand on it, that old limitation of the Ethereum blockchain takes place again. There's only like a theoretical maximum about 25 transactions per second, but of course it's typically between like 8 maybe 10 even transactions per second. That gets the congestion in, and then the gas prices keep rising up. So they were looking at moving to some other gas model, so we'll see what happens with that. It looks like sharding and ETH 2.0 could be far further out based on recent Vitalik conversations, so we'll watch out for that too. And that means that gives, even though in the short term these gas prices make a slightly less case for Pulsechain, in the medium term, it seems like the case for Pulsechain is still really massive, and so that's looking good, I think. All right, so let's quick look at the Ethereum at the moment. We've got Ethereum valued at 310 billion US dollars. You can see that here. And we've got the circulating supply here at 116 million Ethereum, so really not that much. I saw that Vitalik's, who's the founder of Ethereum, has got about 330,000 ETH, and so it gives you some idea of what sort of money he's trading with there. And he recently moved that, of course. He said it was quite nerve-wracking, and I'm not surprised. Market cap 310 billion. Now we know that it looks like it's going to be probably about 10,000 to 1 versus Ethereum with the Pulsechain, and so that would give us just times this 116 billion by 10,000 would give us, that large number that we would have. So instead of millions, we'd be up in a billions marks there. So instead of millions, we'd be in the trillions mark. So about 1.16 trillion. So what we'll probably look at the supply. So basically, we could take the market cap and divide it by that 1.1 trillion, we'll end up with about 26 cents. So that's kind of the upper end, in my view, if we were going to make a comparison, one-on-one comparison. Obviously, there's not going to be all the wallets coming over from Ethereum, and also there'll be at least 2 projects, maybe a few more, that will not keep coming over as well. So you could definitely reduce it down to there. I see that some commentators in the marketplace have talked about 15 cents being sort of the comparison with ETH, but I do see it being up perhaps potentially as high as 26. But once again, that's per pulse. But there'll be price discovery pretty much from zero, and we're probably more modest if we take that down to say that 1 cent and see whether we can tackle that 1 cent mark. That's quite a discount, I know, by 25x, but we've got to be a bit more pragmatic about where the range is. Obviously, there's not financial advice to speculation on the price based on the comparison to Ethereum, but that's kind of some of the numbers there. And so I think 1 cent's probably far more realistic as a price discovery. We never know when the price discovery in crypto. You see pretty much when a lot of ICOs launch, they have this big on the first opening, they rocket up, they overshoot, and then they fall very quickly, and then they start slowly rising over time if they're a good project. That is, if they've got either a big number of users or they have a big economic value proposition that helps them to rise over time. Now, the other thing, of course, is that most of those Pulse tokens will be available in the first phase. There's 2 phases in the Pulsechain launch. The sacrifice phase will run for about 30 days that we know of, and then the mainnet, which we expect, or at least I expect to run maybe within 14 days after the end of the Pulsechain. So we're talking about 45 days is my expectation. It's been delayed already, the first stage, the Pulsechain. We were expecting it 7 days, and now it's been probably about 3 weeks. And at the current one, we looked to Richard did a recent video. Richard Hart, the founder of Hex and Pulsechain, did a video, and it seems to me they're still doing quite a few works trying to get the sacrifice up and running. And obviously, I think they're also waiting for the market prices potentially to rise as well. But of course, they've got Mainnet coming a bit later, but they want to get more value into the sacrifice chain, is my guess. So he has been talking a lot about, yeah, let's go Bitcoin at 55, go Bitcoin, go Bitcoin. So that's kind of given me that feel that he wants the values to be higher, which makes a lot of sense, and get the big numbers up into the Pulse sacrifice, or makes a bigger magnified effect. So that's where I think that's heading. I think it's very exciting, Pulsechain. I think it's really needed in the Ethereum blockchain market to reduce the fees over a long period of time. So I'm very keen on that. Obviously, you're going to get a copy of any ERC20 token over on the Pulsechain, so you'll have a Pulse version. That's going to be very exciting. And that's one of the reasons why the Hex price has been holding up, as the Pulsechain speculation. I think the Hex is obviously an excellent, one of the probably top performer in the last year, but it's definitely looking like it's being held up against a lot of odds in the Pulsechain. Now, obviously, Hex also has liquidity, so we're going to quickly check that out. Here's Hex price here. You can see it's actually holding up very well. Now, we had a nice parabolic here, and I think Hex was going to do pretty well by itself, but with the Pulsechain, it's really supercharged the parabolic, and you can see that here now. That it's already run up, and it's staying up against the volatility of Bitcoin and Ethereum, and still staying there. Look at that, 0.59, pretty much in a range at the moment, tracking in that 5 to 6 cents range, so you can get quite a bit of volatility in between there. Even a couple of spikes up to 7 cents, you can see here as well. Look at that. I mean, this is the daily candle. You can, if we expand that out, you can actually see we've had a number of jabs at 7 cents. If we go to 7, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4 days that have stabbed or peaked past that amount, and we've had a couple other days, probably another 4 or 5 days that have gone above that 6.5 cent. At the moment, we're at 5.9 cents, holding up very well against the market too. If you look at the market's actually quite volatile, moving up in the a couple $100 range for Ethereum. And you can see we had a green day, then a red day, sort of like that. Bitcoin's at 36, Ethereum at 2,680. Now, I did see Floyd Mayweather wearing a nice Ethereum t-shirt there for his fight coming up with Jake Paul, I think it is. So that looks pretty. That was pretty interesting thing. We also have in Florida, they've got the blockchain conference. And I think Elon Musk was even talking about stuff there, or Jeff Bezos, somebody like that was there, and. Actually, I think it might have been the Twitter founder, and they're talking about Bitcoin there as well with electricity use. Obviously, the argument is that it's more efficient in electricity use, so some interesting stuff there. Obviously, Pulsechain's going to be not need to have high electricity. Richard's often been critical of the high electricity use in proof of work, so having the proof of stake really is going to put Hex in a very, Pulsechain in a very strong situation. Now, getting back to Hex, of course, so people buying up Hex is one of the top ERC 20 tokens, and that has been pushing it up. Pretty nice. Look at that, 5.9 cents, staying up there against all odds. Now, it does have liquidity pool. 75% of the Hex liquidity is in US dollars. That does make it less correlated to the rest of the market. If your pool's heavily dominated in like Ethereum or Bitcoin or something like that, you do get largely affected. So only about 25% of Hex is actually in Ethereum, and 75% in US dollars, and both version 2 and version 3 on Uniswap. So that's really cool. That's actually how it gives resistance, let's say, and makes it less correlated. Let's say if a 75% ether could have been really much more volatile despite the buying demand. So ultimately, buying demand is number one. Number two is to get less volatility, having US dollar domination, and that just uncorrelates you a bit. But ultimately, demand is the key. I think we're seeing that with the Pulsechain holding up here at this in this range. Looks pretty good. I mean, look at that, all that fighting there. And also the other thing is that it's got less liquidity in there. We can actually see that on this particular pair. We've got liquidity 3 million, daily volume 630,000. Pooled ETH is 571. This is actually the ETH pairs. This is the 25% part, not the US dollar C pairs, which makes up 75% of the liquidity. And then pooled Hex here is 25,875,000. Now this is a pretty important one because I think Hex is going to be held by the sacrifice wallet after the sacrifice, and also get the snapshot. We'll get the equivalent in Pulsechain. That's a pretty big deal for Hex. I think that's bullish for Hex. Takes more off the liquidity. Liquidity is already low, relatively speaking, around that 5% mark. And the other side of it, obviously, Pulsechain will be the other one that has massive price discovery. So it's a bit like getting in on Hex early, and I think that's a pretty good economic opportunity for people in 2021. Probably the biggest one there is, to be honest. A lot of the meme coins are very high risk, whereas this one here is actually based on a whole copy of the Ethereum blockchain. And as I understand it, the first one there is. Obviously, been a lot of forks of Bitcoin. We've got Bitcoin Cash, and then Bitcoin Cash got forked by BSV, the Craig Wright founder. So there's lots of that stuff happening over the last couple of years, and they've all done pretty well. And obviously, I think Ethereum's coming. This Pulsechain's coming in at a really great time. So like I say, I think that's sort of my upper price limit. So 25 cents, 15 cents probably more reasonable over a period of time. But I think in pragmatic terms, probably price discovery from 0 up to 1 cent or something, and maybe a couple cents is probably where we'll find it. It's just my speculation there, but based on comparison to the blockchain. The other thing is that the time frame, of course, is that we look probably at least another couple of days, if not 7 days, based on Richard's last video. You can check that out too. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So this is a time frame, and in the stages, obviously, I think within 45 days, once we get that first notification, then I think we'll have probably a further breakout here on the on the Hex pair. I think we'll finally have that breakout, potentially up to 10 to 12 cents, and maybe even higher. So just don't undercut how far higher the price can go when the FOMO is on. We've seen that before. It can go pretty high. So my bottom range is 10 to 12 cents. Top of the range, 25 to 40 cents, which is quite large. But the FOMO can be real. We can get the super parabolics going there. Sometimes you get verticals as well. Obviously on Shiba Coin, we saw a vertical day, and we went boom. And when you see verticals, you definitely want to sell into that, typically speaking. So we'll see how that goes. People are going to sacrifice, of course, the Hex and other ERC20s into the sacrifice addresses. So we'll see what that looks like. It's going to be pretty amazing, crazy time. Obviously, Richard's kind of given a general rule of thumb in terms of your strategy. So here's a couple of strategy tips. First of all, he's given the 2/3 sacrifice for Pulse and 1/3 for keep in Hex liquid. And then also another strategy that you can think about is if the sacrifice phase has the volume in it, then if you've got people that you trust, you could actually join forces and submit your, say, if you're going to use Hex, for example, you can use other ERC20s or even some other major currencies like ETH or Bitcoin or whatever. You can do that, but you can actually think about combining only with trusted people, people that you trust, forever. And then you could think about going in with them if there's a volume limit, because obviously the higher you ranked in the volume, probably the more you'll get in terms of a pulse relative to just going in with a lower amount and getting ranked lower. We're waiting to see the final gamification, of course, so just keep that subject to whatever the gamification actually comes in. But we're expecting in the first 7 days to have something along those lines, and then after that we'll have a penalty 4.25% after that. So if those still stay in place, we'll find out, but that's still up in the air as well. But in terms of time frame, probably looking within the next 7 days again. So rolling, extending another 7 days into expectation when Pulsechain comes out. We do it as early as it could be last Sunday, but now obviously this Sunday is probably upon us. So we'll probably see if we get a surprise announcement. But I'm still expecting probably 7 days away at this stage, based on his last update. So I hope you enjoyed that. Feel free to subscribe, like, and share. Hit the bell for notifications. And so really that is the Hex Pumpamentals. The Pulse chain will be a supercharged version of ETH basically. And we'll wait to see how many projects come across there. Obviously super low fees, staking as well, validated interest, all that sort of stuff, really pumping those bags and really dealing with that cost there. I think there's a lot of upside to it. I think there'll be an initial frenzy with the price discovery, then a bit of a pullback, and then a slowly ramp up as people start to use it in an economic way as another place other than Ethereum where they can trade similar tokens that they've got a copy of. So very cool indeed. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I think that there's potential, at least you probably the biggest potential this year for 100 to 1000x over the next 12 to 18 months on that one. So it could be exciting times. Obviously not investment advice. This is cryptocurrency after all, but I hope you enjoyed a few insights there if you might have gathered. And I'll catch you in the next one. Going to keep posting about Pulsechain. I think it's a pretty big deal, and Pulse token. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.